Okay, kind of looking at this Lizzie Borden stuff from a different angle, um, from somebody slightly different. Want to see if there's anything else that we can pick out from it. From the last videos, I thought Lizzie did it. Thought she had the motive, and I think she had the opportunity, and I think her temperament was more conducive to do something like unalive her dad and then unalive her stepmother. I think she got her dad first, and then she got her stepmother. Her dad, because the fact that he was letting something happen, she felt like maybe he was being taken advantage of, because the dad was wealthy, the family was wealthy, the mother passed away, and then he remarried, and so maybe she felt like, you're letting this person come in between. First of all, maybe we feel like you're moving on from mom too fast. In 3 years, but we feel like you're moving on from mom too fast. But not only that, is that you are letting her come between us, and you are letting her come between your family on mom's side. It's like you don't even care for us, and then you're investing in her family, giving her family property that's supposed to be for us, that's supposed to be from mom's side of the family. And so it seems like you're just kind of pushing us away. We don't like that. And so at some point in time, and for sure, Lizzie and her sister are going to her mom's side of the family like, dad's going crazy, dad's giving away all his money, somebody should come talk to him. So no doubt it's possible that the uncle, the maternal uncle, comes over and he's like, hey man, I would like to stay for a couple of days. But he probably came over there to talk on behalf of the daughters, who had probably been talking to the mom's side of the family about what dad is doing and what's going on. So they probably try to come over and talk some sense into him. And so when that didn't work, uncle probably left and was like, man, it is what it is. And so there's the speculation that Lizzie took matters into her own hands after the sister left. Tension just kept building. The sister left to go do whatever, and everybody in the house went to sleep. Ironically, Lizzie was the only one not in the house sleep. But the housekeeper woke up to Lizzie screaming and carrying on. So, yeah.
In the 1800s, the story of axe-wielding spinster Lizzie Borden was a national phenomenon. But to the infamous Borden, who has been portrayed by Christina Ricci in 1860, Lizzie Borden was the youngest child of Andrew and Sarah Borden. Tragically, Lizzie's mother passed away when the girl was just 2 years old, and she spent most of her life with her stepmom, Abby. Decades later, at the age of 32, Lizzie had become a prominent figure in her hometown of Fall River. She was energetic and outgoing, especially compared to her 41-year-old wallflower sister, Emma. In addition to teaching Sunday school, Lizzie kept herself busy singing in a church choir and delivering baskets and bouquets to the sick and poor. She campaigned against alcohol as a member of the Women's Christian Temperance Union, worked at a charity hospital, and served as the secretary-treasurer for the Christian Endeavor Society. She even prepared turkey dinners on Christmas for underprivileged kids. Neither of the Borden sisters was married, which was unusual for the time. As a result, Lizzie and
because that's what I do. You know what I mean? I'm good until you push me over the edge. And so I'm doing all these great things for people. I'm a nice person. I'm a Christian person. I teach Sunday school. I give food to the needy because I'm a great person until you push me.
Emma lived at home with their 70-year-old father, Andrew. He started off as an undertaker before making it big in real estate and the banking business. But even though he was one of the wealthiest men in Fall River, most described Andrew as a notorious penny pincher. As for his second wife, the 63-year-old Abby, most sources claim she didn't really get along with her stepdaughters. With a stingy dad and a stepmother she didn't like, Lizzie wasn't crazy about her home life. And as it turns out, Lizzie's relationship with her parents was about to get even worse. On August 4th, 1892, Bridget Maggie Sullivan, maid to the Borden family.
So he had Liz. So if he's 70, he had Liz when he was 38. And then his stepmother was at 63, I think. So she was like 31 years the senior of Lizzie, and probably 7 years younger. So, I mean, that's crazy, yo. You picking on senior citizens at this point. Like,
woke up with a serious case of nausea and vomited after preparing breakfast.
But see, that's the problem, though. You know what I'm saying? There's the problem, though. There's a problem with old people. Old people are stuck in their ways, and you ain't gonna just talk to old people any kind of way. Because this is the thing about old people. My grandma is 85. And she is 5'2", but you can't tell her that because she would stand up to somebody that's 6'4" as if she's also 6'4". talking to him like she gonna put hands on him. You know what I mean? And if that's the energy that these older folks are putting out, you're coming against somebody like these kids, man, it's gonna be a problem.
However, she wasn't the only one suffering from
because old people ain't gonna be intimidated by no one.
Stomach sickness. Both Andrew and Abby Borden had been violently ill, and Mrs. Borden had gone to the family physician the day before, claiming she'd been poisoned. That morning, Sullivan was ordered to wash all the outside windows, leaving Lizzie and her stepmother in the house alone. Meanwhile, Andrew was running errands. Borden had gone to the family physician with a serious case of nausea and vomited after preparing breakfast. However, she wasn't the only one. Maggie Sullivan, maid to the Borden family, woke up with a serious case of nausea and vomited after preparing breakfast. However, she wasn't the only one suffering from stomach sickness. Both Andrew and Abby Borden had been violently ill, and Mrs. Borden had gone to the family physician the day before, claiming she'd been poisoned. That morning, Sullivan was ordered to wash all the outside windows, leaving Lizzie and her stepmother in the house alone. Meanwhile, Andrew was running errands, Emma was meeting friends in another town, and their uncle and house guest, John Morse, was visiting other relatives. However, things got weird a little before 11. Andrew had just returned home, and as Sullivan went to let him in, she heard laughing coming from upstairs. The maid wasn't sure what was so funny, but shortly after Andrew stepped inside, Lizzie came downstairs and said Abby had received a note from a sick friend and had gone to visit. With his wife gone, Andrew settled down on the living room sofa and quickly fell asleep for the last time. According to the New York Times, the maid was woken from a nap by Lizzie Borden's screams, and she rushed downstairs to see what was the matter. She was met by Lizzie, who told her that an intruder had attacked her father. Lizzie sent the maid to fetch Dr. Bowen and her good friend Alice Russell, which left Lizzie alone in the house for several minutes. As for Andrew, it was determined he'd been struck 11 times by an axe or hatchet. Later, Abby Borden was found lying dead in the upstairs guest room. The victim of 18 or the police found the head of a hatchet, minus the handle, down in the basement. And while it was treated as the weapon, it seemed pretty clean for something just used to butcher two people. Because of how sick the Bordens had been, their stomachs were sent away for testing, but no poison was identified. Almost immediately,
So she may have gotten to Abby, the stepmother, first, put her downstairs, gave the story that, yo, she's not even here, so you shouldn't even be looking for her. First of all, Dad, don't look for her. She's gone. And then to also alert the maid too, she's gone. Keep the maid out of the room where she is, and Dad, you just stay asleep. So Abby probably got it first. That would make sense. That Abby would get, the stepmother would get it first. I was wondering about that. I was like, well, who got it first? Because, you know, I couldn't see her. Like, she has to build up to be frustrated at her dad. Because I gotta get Abby first. I gotta get my stepmom first, because that's who I'm really mad at. But then I might have to get Dad if Dad starts to peak to, you know, could have been one or two things. I gotta get Dad because Dad came home and didn't give me time to move her and say that she just ran off or something like that. Or the second thing is I got to get Dad just because he's tied to her and I'm already amped up now. So that could be the case.
Police focused on Lizzie, the only other person thought to have been in the house at the time of both. After all, there was a lot of circumstantial evidence pointing in her direction. For instance, according to a clerk at a local drugstore, Lizzie had come in the day before them hoping to buy prussic acid, which is incredibly poisonous. She claimed she wanted it for cleaning purposes, but the timing seemed suspicious in retrospect.
Sometimes, Alice, I have a feeling that something terrible is going to happen there.
Others wondered how Lizzie could have been inside for Abby's and not heard the sounds of a vicious attack, especially since the Borden house wasn't that big. Alice Russell, Lizzie's friend, claimed Lizzie had recently mentioned that she was worried that something bad might happen to her father. There was also the issue of the note Lizzie said Abby Borden received that morning, asking her to visit a sick friend. The police couldn't find it anywhere. Plus, the timing just didn't work. Abby was killed around 9:30, and Andrew was murdered about 11. If a stranger had committed the crimes, they would have had to wait inside for 90 minutes, or have left in between them and then come back, which seems highly unlikely. When Lizzie was questioned at a coroner's inquest several days later, things didn't go well, as her testimony appeared to be full of contradictions. Coupled with the circumstantial evidence, her statements soon landed her behind bars, kicking off one of the most sensational trials in American history. The trial started on June 5, 1893. At one point, the prosecution dramatically revealed Andrew and Abby's skulls, prompting Lizzie to faint in the courtroom. Things only got worse for the state when the judges ruled that Lizzie's inquest testimony was inadmissible, in part because she hadn't had a lawyer at the time, and partly because she'd been questioned while under the influence of doctor-prescribed morphine. The judges also threw out testimony about her trying to purchase prussic acid. As for the defense team, they did a great job of getting the state's witnesses.
Why? Sometimes courts be tripping, man. Just throwing out valuable information. Just to be throwing it out for what? On what grounds? I can understand being under the influence, and so you're just saying anything, but it's just like, golly, y'all throw out everything that anybody could stand on.
To contradict themselves, as well as discrediting several of the prosecution's biggest arguments. And handyman who'd been working in the loft shortly before the crimes, calling the police's evidence into question. Andrew Borden was one of the wealthiest men in Fall River, with an estate worth about $7 million by today's standards, but he was also incredibly stingy. As a result, the Bordens lived in a house without electricity or running water.
Oh,
there weren't even any bathtubs or toilets.
Excuse me, Father.
Things got even worse when Andrew gave a house to Abby's sister in 1887. Evidently, Emma and Lizzie thought their father preferred his in-laws over his own.
Hey, yo. You got us living in a crib with no electricity and water? We could be up on the hill living good. You worth about 7 million and you got us living like bums, only to turn around and give a crib to somebody's family member whom I don't like. I don't even like this woman, and instead of using the money on us and thinking about our family first, you gonna go and give somebody else a crib? Bet.
Flesh and blood. And this allegedly made things pretty icy in the Borden household. Plus, the Borden girls never liked their stepmom. To this day, most people who believe Lizzie was guilty hold to the theory that money and hatred of her stepmom led to her committing the.
My father is a complicated man, and he was known to be difficult.
However, it should be noted that not everyone thinks that Andrew was as greedy as the history books suggest. According to journals kept by one of Lizzie's lawyers, it appears that Andrew and his daughter were at least somewhat close. As explained by Michael Martins, curator of the Fall River Historical Society, Andrew Borden was apparently quite concerned about his daughter's well-being. Andrew also paid for Lizzie to tour Europe a few years before the murder, suggesting that he could be generous at times.
Yeah, I'll stop it right there and we'll jump right back into it. But the thing about it is, that's why she got so upset, because her and her father are so close. And with the mother being out of the house and the mother being passed on, that role she felt like should go to her. So she feels like she's woman number one. So when another woman comes in and it feels like that other woman is taking her role, it feels like she's no longer daddy's little girl and she's now being pushed away and pushed out of the number one spot. And there's already anger and jealousy there. But then when it starts to feel like more like I'm being pushed out of this spot, no matter what I do, and it seems like you're listening to her more than me. And, Andrew is like, absolutely, I'll do anything for my daughter, but my daughter needs to stay in line. She needs to stay in her place. So maybe we're getting to into a heated debate, and dad says, be quiet. That's enough. She's going to sit back and, Dad, you never talk to me like that. So I don't know, man, but comment, share, like, subscribe. Let me know what you think. Am I off? Am I on? It is what it is, man. But until next video, take it easy.